It's only fair that, I'm wearing a red shirt when I'm going to be talking about a set of films that will be leading into a new film that'll be coming out where one of the main colors in this new film is red. But people have been coming and going from this place in the computer called the grid for over 40 years. My dad's generation had their movie, my generation had our movie, and now a new generation is going to experience it. With Tron Ares coming out in literally, hours. Well, today, essentially, if you're going to see it early. I thought it would be fitting if we looked back on the previous entries in the franchise. And, of course, we're going to start right where we were in the beginning with Tron, which was released all the way back in 1982. And it tells the story of Kevin Flynn, who used to work for a giant company called Encom, but it no longer works there, and he now runs an arcade area. However, he does discover that his former colleague and Ed Dillinger is stealing his work. So Flynn tries to hack into the system using a program called Clue. Keep that in the back of your mind. But Flynn is transported to the grid, where he has to take on Dillinger's computerized likeness, which is named Sark, and the imposing Master Control Program, or the MCP. However, Flynn is not alone in this fight. He does have Tron as well as Yori by his side, and together they try to fight Zark and the MCP to try and free the programs that are on the grid. So, this movie was a really big game changer when it came out in 1982. Probably not then, but has since been given that title as a game changer. And I just have to get this out of the way right now. The visuals in this movie, they are very, what's the kind way of putting this? Very retro. You can definitely tell that this movie was from the 80s with the visual effects. But in the same instance, there is a bit of a charm to it. Like we talked about in my review for the one episode of Jimmy Neutron that I talked about, the N-Men, where it's like, I really don't care about the animation because it brings me back to when I was a child. It brings back, all those good feelings. And there is a bit of a charm to it, just seeing, especially with like the light cycles racing on the grid, and then, they have those like very abrupt, like 90-degree turns to them. There is a bit of a charm to that. And I must talk about how they shot all of this. Of course, being back in 1982, they didn't shoot digitally. They shot this on film. But they shot it on basically a black and white set. And what would happen is when you would, if I remember correctly, from watching the amazing video on Corridor Crew's channel, which, go check out Corridor Crew. They have a lot of great stuff. But in their video breaking down both of the Tron movies' VFX, they shot on a completely black and white set. And they, I believe, inverted the film so that whatever was black became white. You could then put, like, I forget the term, but you can basically, I don't want to say color in, but that it is essentially like coloring in like the white spaces in the frame. But in some instances, there would be like the grid behind them, and you would have to cut out the person in that frame. Well, you would also have to cut out their face, their eyes, their teeth, so that they could, be white and actually be, recognizable. And, you know, they had to do that for every single frame on this movie, which just sounds like a tremendous pain. But I will say, even though I do say that the effects in this are, a bit retro, again, there is a charm to them, and they still look really good 40 years later. Like, it still looks really good, in my opinion. The performances in this, of course, Mr. Jeff Bridges, he is in here. Bruce Boxleitner, I hope I'm saying his last name correctly, as Tron, and Alan Brady. David Warner as the MCP, as well as, I believe, Sark. Cindy Morgan, David Shore, Barnard Hughes. Everybody in this cast does an absolutely amazing job in this, especially the four that we follow into the grid, like Bridges, Boxleitner, Morgan, Warner. They all do absolutely amazing jobs in this, and it was really, really good. Steven Lisberger was the person who directed this, and I think he did a really good job, especially considering the fact, that he was, filming on what is essentially a black and white set. I mean, that's pretty good to be able to know, like, okay, what is what, like, what's this, da 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 da, and it's absolutely incredible. And of course, Lisberger also did the screenplay for this and was also part of the story writing process with Bonnie McBird. They did a really good job, and at that point, 1982, it was really forward thinking. Thinking, oh, there's like a world inside of the computers, and flash forward, all these years later, and that is a somewhat true statement in that. And it's absolutely insane to me that they were thinking about that 40 years ago, and being able to put that on the page and then onto the screen is absolutely awesome. So if you are wanting a really good nostalgic feeling with some really good performances, some really good effects, and some just nice looking fun action, then I would say Tron is definitely the way to go. But Tron was left on ice for a long, long time, and it wasn't until the 2000s where it was dusted off and brought back to life. I'm, of course, talking about 2010s, and yes, I am saying that correctly, 2010s, which means it is 15 years old. Tron Legacy. This was the Tron movie that I grew up with, and I remember vividly me and my dad, and I think a whole family effort. We went to go see this movie, and I remember watching that movie on the big screen for the first time, and I was like, holy moly, this is really, really cool. And I'll get to some of the things that I really like about this, but we follow Kevin's son in this movie, and who's also named. Oh, sorry. For forgetting about the film. Jesus. And yes, I'm leaving this in. So Kevin, when he gets promoted to CEO of Encom, he basically disappears, leaving a son in the world, Sam. And Sam has become, this big rebellious type of guy, and he suddenly gets like a call from his dad, or a page from his dad, and tells him to swing by the arcade. Well, doesn't find him in the arcade, but sees some old computer stuff, and he gets taken into the grid. And he not only has to find a way out, but also try and find out where his dad is. Meanwhile, Clue, the program that we last talked about in Tron, he is still about, but he is trying to take over the grid and shape it into his very own image. So, not only does Sam have to deal with trying to get his dad, but also have to outrun Clue and his little minions as well. So, again, this came out in 2010, and if I remember correctly, I was either the tail end of elementary school, heading into middle school, or I was still firmly in elementary school when I went to go see this movie. And my mind was absolutely blown away by this. And this movie, to me, even then and even now, it's still so good. It's so good. Visuals in this, I know we talked about in the first Tron movie, bit retro. Now, granted, that is with 40 years past. Here, it's 15 years have passed since this movie came out. And the visuals in this look really, really good. Like, they're really, really good. Like, the one thing that you could potentially nitpick on this movie is the de-aging of Jeff Bridges for Clue. But I think I also give them just a touch leeway, because I think, what was it? The only other de-aging that was going on, like, this was the first time I ever saw, like, an actor de-aged. But the X-Men movies, I believe, did that. Like, I know X-Men Last Stand opened with Charles and Magneto going to Jean Grey's house, and Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen were de-aged for that. I believe in X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was, I believe, 2009, Patrick Stewart was once again de-aged for that movie. But I hadn't seen any of those. So this was my first time encountering it, and I thought it looked really good. Now, granted, as time has gone on, it has gotten a lot better. I think the best that I have seen of the de-aging is probably a coin flip between Luke Skywalker in Book of Boba Fett and the Harrison Ford de-aging that they did for Dial of Destiny. Both of those were really good, and both of those were done by ILM, who I believe was the VFX department that worked on this movie. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, visuals in this are absolutely awesome. I love the de-res effect where they just like shatter into like little blocks. I love the stream on the light cycles and the aircraft and all that stuff. So good. Performances in this cast. We of course have Jeff Bridges returning again as Kevin Flynn, but we also have Garrett Hedlund as Sam, Olivia Wilde as Cora, Bruce Box-Lentner returning as, I believe, the voice of Tron. But there are also like little cameos in this. For example, in fact, this is probably the only one that I can pull off the top of my head. Did you know that Cillian Murphy is in this movie? He is actually one of the guys in the boardroom with, I think he has glasses on. But yes, Cillian Murphy is also in this movie, which I thought was really, really cool that he was in that. I was watching reactions and I was like, oh yeah, Cillian Murphy is in this movie. That was really cool. The soundtrack in this movie is perfection, absolute perfection. Now I didn't get to talk about it in my first movie, so I'll talk about it now. Wendy Carlos, I believe, was the name of the person that did the soundtrack for the first Tron movie, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good, but this right here is the Tron soundtrack in my opinion. Daft Punk, like this is perfection. When I think of Tron, I think of this soundtrack. And when I think of this soundtrack, I think of two songs in particular. Rinzler's theme and The Game Has Changed. The one in which they're on the lightcycle battle. And both of those tracks are so good. Like, every once in a while, I'll just put them on. And I've always thought, like, man, that would be a really cool, if you're making like a WrestleMania entrance, like that would be the perfect combination of tracks that you would use to make your entrance to. Like, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. So yeah, this soundtrack is absolutely awesome. But to get back to it, the performances by everyone, absolutely awesome. Jeff Bridges, once again, does an absolutely amazing job as both Kevin and Clue. Garrett Hedlund, I think, does a really good job, as does Olivia Wilde. And just like everybody in this does a really, really good job. The fight sequences in this are really, really good, especially whenever Rinzler's on screen, because, you know, back when I was a kid, it was like, oh, whoever has like the coolest stuff, like, that's who I like, and I have an immediate draw towards the villains. So like whenever Rinzler shows up and he's got the 2 discs, I was like, oh, dude, this is awesome. And then when he does the flip after he crashes the light cycle and he pulls out another light cycle and he just goes, oh, it's so good. He's so cool. He's so cool in this. The directing was done by future Top Gun Maverick director and also the director of F1, Joseph Kosinski. And I think he does a really good job. Like, he does an absolutely amazing job of what I think in my mind as like grand shots, when like the recognizer is carting Sam away, and we get like this big shot of the city, and we see like what is it, like the car, I'm gonna call it the cargo vessel, pulling them towards a, what I'm thinking is an air station, and you just see them moving across the sky of the grid, and it just looks really, really good. Um, the way he helms certain set pieces are also really, really good, like the Disc Wars um, scene, the light cycle scene, all of the fights and stuff that happens in this movie, and giving certain characters character beats in this movie. They're really, really good, and they're just really, really awesome. And I think that comes down to two things: amazing direction, but also amazing writing. Because the writing duo for this movie was Edward Kitsis and Adam Horowitz. And if those names ring a bell to you, that is because they are the duo behind Once Upon a Time, the ABC show that ran for a good long while. And me and my family, we definitely got into that. We got in, this is a bit of a tangent, but we got in at season 4 because we had heard that, you know, the Frozen characters were coming in for that season. And after that, we were hooked, and I basically, thankfully, I had a cousin who had the previous 3 seasons on DVD, and so just binged them on a couple of our trips down to Florida, and basically got ourselves caught up, and we basically followed that show until it ended, which was really, really cool. But anyway, I think they did an absolutely amazing job with the script in this movie, and again, just given character moments for everyone, like with Kevin, with some of his dialogue still kind of being in the 80s, but also giving him that emotional moment at the end where he's like, I can't let Clue get to him because he's got the disc and he's gonna go, but he basically brings Clue back into him and basically resets the grid, and basically that's how the movie ends, with Sam and Cora now in the real world. Sam's got the, what is it, like, I think it's a chip around his. He basically made a necklace out of that chip, with all of the data with the grid on it, essentially, and that's how the movie ends, is with Sam and Cora riding off into the, I believe, sunrise. And yeah, that's just how the movie ends. And it's a really, really good time. It is a really, really fun time. Really good characters, lots of cool character moments, really good direction, score absolutely phenomenal, and this movie is absolutely 100% underrated. But here's the thing that I wanted to kind of comment on. I saw the reviews. I've been seeing reviews for Tronares, and they aren't necessarily the best. People are saying the critics are calling it okay. However, I went back and took a look at Tron Legacy's uh, critic reviews. They're also mixed. If you look at it now, I think it's hovering at 51% on Rotten Tomato, and Tron Ares I think is at 52 or 53. So, you know, what many people herald as, an underrated classic in Tron Legacy, could have, a similar effect for Tron Ares right now. But I'm going to go see the movie tomorrow in gorgeous IMAX. I cannot wait to watch it in IMAX, and I'm also very excited to hear Nine Inch Nails and what they're able to do for soundtrack wise for the movie. But yeah, that is my reviews for both Tron and Tron Legacy ahead of Tron Ares. I hope you guys enjoyed my double review. And let me know down in the comments if you want more double reviews, and what are your memories of this franchise, both the original Tron and with Tron Legacy. But that is pretty much it for me, guys. Be safe out there, and remember, always, always have a backup, light cycle with you, because you never know when your first one, dereses and you have to like make another speedy getaway. So it's always handy to have a second light cycle on hand, or basically any type of vehicle handy in the grid, because you never know when you need a quick getaway. And I will catch you guys next time.